Welcome back to the Ancient Paths podcast. Today's episode is called The Feminine Divine, Understanding Our Symbiotic Relationship with Creation. And I'm here today with my amazing panel. This is my first panel show. I'm so excited. I normally just have one guest, but today I have two, possibly three, coming in later. But we're going to dig in today how all of creation has two distinctions, a feminine and masculine counterpart. Obviously, we're going to focus more on the feminine today and how women have a deep, innate connection to the earth. This is where we get the term Mother Earth, right? The ancients all understood this concept of Mother Earth, Father Sky. And we are really this vessel where heaven and earth come together. But women have this deep connection to the earth, to the moon. And it takes a minute to just really get out of the mentality that we've been programmed to believe, this modern matrix that we're in. But when we really dig into looking at creation, seeing what's all around us, how all of creation is displaying the story, then we can really see who we are, who we were made to be, and how we can work in relationship with creation and with each other to bring harmony. So my panel today is the Mystic Mamas. It's what we call ourselves in our group chat. But I met these ladies a few years ago, and right away, I just resonated with each of you, with everything you had to say. And it's really cool because when we get together, rarely, we'd love to get together more, but we all have busy schedules and families. It's just like we ping all these ideas off each other, and you'll say something and I'll say something, and then, somebody else will say something, and it's just like revelation upon revelation. So we all come from vastly different religious backgrounds, and we're all kind of coming to the same understanding and seeing a lot of the same truths, and it's really exciting. So I'm just going to introduce my friend Emily Jane. Hi, Emily. And
Hi.
how we met is really funny because I was in the checkout at our local grocery store, and you had saw me. I saw you looking at me, and we kind of looked at each other and just had like this connection. And you're like, "Are you Carly?" And you had just been to the other biofeedback practitioner in our town. I'm not sure there's many, but the other one that I know of. And you had ozone. And so we start talking. I'm like, "You smell like ozone." You must have just had some type of holistic treatment. And you were telling me about the book, The Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation, which is just, I finally read that book. I'm hoping to do an episode on that, the Mazzaroth and meat. Yeah. Mine's all marked up and dog-eared now, as you told me it would be. But we just started talking in the middle of the HEB self-checkout line to the point where I think it was like 20 minutes had gone by and the associate was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you just get out of the way?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." But it's like the world around us didn't exist because we were just in this little portal of like truth sharing and discovery. So thank you for being here, Emily Jane. I'm excited to hear your insights on this.
Yes, so happy to be here. I remember that day vividly, and you were buying plants. I
Oh,
remember that too.
yeah. Any excuse I can find to buy plants or buy plants for somebody. It's a great gift. And Jesse, I met you through the Weston A. Price chapter meetings. And we started connecting right away on nourishing food and homesteading and, raising our kids on the land. Um, and then your mom, I've met your mom at a few meetings, and your mom has had like some pretty radical encounters with just experiencing wisdom and truth poured out on her. And so you and I have had some amazing discussions, and I'm excited for what you have to say today as well. So thanks for being here, Jesse. And your recording cut out a little bit, but that's okay. We'll wait for you to come back here. All right. So I'm going to pray like I always do, and then we're going to jump back into it, and hopefully Jessie can join us. Oh, there she is. She's back again. Oh, I think she had a call coming in. All right. I'm going to pray. Well, we come right now with our breath, with our intention. We just thank you so much, Father Yah, our creator. We bless our creator and creation because our creator is in the creation. You're in all things. We thank you that we have a father, that we have a mother, that we have a brother who came before us. And I thank you so much for each one of these ladies and what they bring and just the universe within a multiverse that they are. I pray that our words would be pleasing, that would be for the best, most, and highest potential, not just for us, but for those listening, and that they would be acceptable before your face, the creator of all. We thank you. We bless this time in the mighty name of our Messiah and our creator. Amen. All right. It's just you and I until Jesse comes back in. But all right. So we were at a recent gathering. We got together and we had like a little brunch at outside of the garden at my office. And It was such a sweet time, and we were just talking about all the things, and I started telling you ladies about just this truth that's been unfolding to me about our connection to Mother Earth and how, again, the ancients understood this. We see this throughout scripture. I'm going to bring up some scriptures for people that get triggered and feel like, oh, that's not biblical. It actually is. Read the book of Song of Solomon. She is likened to a garden, she's likened to the earth. And then when you begin to study the ancient language, the Paleo Hebrew, everything has a feminine and masculine design or intention. And most of the ancient languages do. Even some of our romantic languages, they still carry this feminine masculine counterpart. We in English have completely whitewashed all of it. We've lost the depth. We've lost the true meaning of these words. But in the Paleo Hebrew, the aretz, the earth, is always feminine. So is water. So is fire. So is all the elements that we see that kind of make up the material manifestation of life. And I've heard this said many times that the earth is a womb, that we're born into this womb of the earth. And in the four seasons, we see this process of like this regeneration, this life, this blooming, this bearing fruit, and then this time of dormancy, and then going into this what feels like a death, and then this rebirth all over again. And so we see this cyclical pattern in our own bodies as women. And when we really understand our electromagnetic design, that we are salt and light, that we are electromagnetism, that we are made of minerals and we are made of electricity, basically, we are made of, a father and a mother that came together that created life. And I've talked about this before, and we'll probably do a whole nother show on that. But our design shows us that this is who we are. And so as women, we have a really unique and powerful role in this dance of creation. It's not more important than the masculine part, but unfortunately, we have lived in a society that has really downgraded women. We've had this pendulum swing of for so many years women being treated as commodity and slaves, and then now, especially in the 1960s and 70s, there came this opposite end where it's like, no, we can be just like men, we can do anything they can do. And really, we've lost this middle ground of who we were made to be. And we're trying to find our way back to that. So, you have any revelations on that, Emily Jane?
Oh, I mean, I see the same pattern that's happened sort of in the macrocosm and the microcosm. We kind of lost the core essence, and that it's really about balance. And if you can use that analogy of Father Sky, Mother Earth, then you realize that I mean, we need we need sunlight, we need water. That's how plants grow. That's how humans grow. And then you start seeing that pattern everywhere and you're like, "Oh, like if we had too much light, right? We get sunburned and dehydrated."
Or
And
plants
guess
shrivel up. Yeah.
that's right. And if you water them too much, they're going to shrivel up and die. They can't grow in the dark. If you can go back to those ancient languages that and even just the Latin,
Hmm.
El Sol, like I mean there is a reason for those, little L's and laws at the beginning of those words. And when you start to really take that in, you realize that it's all been about masculine feminine balance all along. We just forgot, or the pendulum swung too far one way or the other.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I hope that the other Jessie can make it on later. She's a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and I just connected with her recently after years of people telling me, "You need to meet Jessie." But, in Chinese medicine, we have the yin and the yang, right? The yang and the yin, where it's this perfect balance. And, if you look at that whole design, like when we were kids, we used to always draw that like on our notebooks in school, like because we were cool. But really understanding that this is an ancient symbol to explain creation, that there's a masculine and feminine counterpart, there's a hot and cold counterpart, there's a electrical and there's a magnetic counterpart, and there's a tiny bit of each one in the other side, right? Like we do have some masculine traits within us, but the overarching picture is feminine when we're female. And then the same with men, they have this side that's the opposite, and we have to have that for that magnetism for them to really work together in harmony. So anyway, we were just talking, Jesse, about just the language of creation, and even like Emily Jane was saying, Latin just reveals that there are these masculine and feminine counterparts in all things, and understanding how do we get them in balance? How do we bring true connection to that? is how we're going to heal. Do you have any comments on that?
I mean, other than just agreeing completely that it is a balance and, we're probably coming into some phase. I think Emily Jane, you actually introduced me to how, they say everything's a circle, but it's actually a spiral. And it's
Mm,
like there's a balance and then there's an imbalance. And with every phase that we return to, it actually gets a little better. So I'm hoping that that's where we're going. Like there was ultra feminism, ultra patriarchy, which I kind of think maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of think we're in that now. But I think it's I, either my algorithm's telling me what I want to hear, or people are really waking up to this reality of how incredibly important uh, the divine feminine and matriarchy are to life. And in my opinion, if you do not see that, we're not in the same reality because and we can't do this without masculinity. So I'm not discounting that. I'm not discounting men and their role, but we literally grow and feed the life to a certain point, and then we need the men to take care of things, whether it's children, the earth, whatever it is. We need both, so that balance is hopefully coming. It seems like it is.
yeah. I know it's exciting. I have probably a similar algorithm, but it's out there. The cool thing that I think is that the information is out there, and I want to do an episode on exiting the matrix and just how amazing it is that the season that we're in, where the media used to be completely controlled by one group of people. And now it's like the media is back in the hands of the people, where it's like where people would just watch a show every night, or now we're watching other real people across this realm of existence sharing information. And it's like we're building this online network and community, and you feel this momentum building. So I agree. The spin's going higher. I feel like we're going deeper into the heart of love, gratitude, into the heart of God, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it the universe. I mean, we're all just trying to explain in our own language and what we've been taught what's happening. And so it's really exciting. I think the more we can come together in unity, the more we're really going to see these changes happen. So I want to switch gears real quick. I had sent this to you ladies in our group chat a couple months ago when we were talking about this concept. So I want to just share my screen here. And this is a reel I found. Maybe one of you sent it to me, or I don't know, but I found it on Facebook and I shared it in our group, and I just think it's so cool. So here it is. Can we see that?
Coisa, tudo aquilo que eu podia conquistar. Vou dormir, 3 e pouca. Pedro, você acorda cedo, é que eu preciso de tempo pra cantar. Hoje eu deitei pra dormir e eu pensei em tanta coisa, tudo aquilo que eu podia conquistar. Vou dormir, 3 e pouca. Pedro, você acorda cedo, é que eu preciso de tempo pra cantar.
In that luteal phase, it's really stressful. So then when you have that on top of the stress of life, that if you have your man supporting you in that way, it helps support everything run smoothly. So it's good for them. It's good for the kids. It's good for everybody involved.
It's sort of another area when you were talking about when you mentioned, like, the medicating of women giving childbirth, men not even being allowed in the room, and then kind of just what you were referring to, like having the garden be this peaceful retreat. There's somewhere along the way, we society also said men can't do it. You're not capable,
Yeah.
and treating them like children. I mean, we've all been there, I'm sure, where you've said, oh yeah, how many kids do you have? And it's like, oh, I don't have just 2 boys, but I have 3. Like it's, and we laugh about that, but really that leads us down the path. That's part of the problem with the path that we've been on. Um, our men, our young boys, that there's healthy masculinity that needs to be nurtured, just like we need the healthy feminine, as well. But I thought about that, like the archaic kind of like picture of the man not even being allowed in the room. And it's like, oh, that's just a woman's thing. And even my dad not really being comfortable being like a grandpa on his own. Like he's like, he always needs like, well, are you gonna be around too?
Yeah.
Um anyway, so it's really great to like envision, how do we manifest that balance where we create that atmosphere where men can step into those roles and have that responsible gardening ship, that we know they can have.
Yeah, that's so good. And real quick, I just want to recap what I just said because I realized when I ended that screen sharing, I think I ended the recording. So I
Uh-oh.
want to go back and say that clip was amazing. And we were just saying that, it's not worshiping women. It's actually caring for, like, somebody might see that video and think, oh, he's just worshiping his wife. No, he's actually caring for his garden. He's caring for creation. And again, the Song of Solomon is an amazing example of this, where we see this analogy of the gardener and the garden, of man stewarding creation, stewarding Mother Earth. And we see this connection. So I'm going to read this again. Song of Songs 4:12-16. A locked garden is my sister, my bride, an enclosed spring, a sealed fountain. Your shoots are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruit, henna and nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all the trees of frankincense, myrrh, and aloes, along with the finest spices. A garden spring, a well of living water and flowing streams from Lebanon. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow on my garden, let its fragrance spread out, and my lover come into his garden and eat its choicest fruit. And we were just saying earlier, too, that's like better than listening to Marvin Gaye right there. You just, if that doesn't tell you about this relationship we're supposed to have with our men. And again, we're the garden. We're meant to be their resting place, a place where they can go in and breathe that sigh of relief, where they can enjoy the beauty of creation. We were made to be more beautiful than we are functional. Men are more functional, women are more beautiful. And we can go into a garden. Like right now we've got a couple gardens going. They're not necessarily pretty. The one area of my garden is like overflowing with wild yellow flowers. And that's like my favorite place of the garden. It's functional, but is it beautiful? And Noel Hadley talked about this on his podcast. He talked about the feminine divine and the masculine, the true men and the true women. And it was so cool. And I don't know where he got this quote from. I think it was somewhere in this book of morals and precepts, but he was saying, like, if you look at a man, the way he was designed, like he was designed to not survive the earth, but I'm saying he was designed to care for the earth. Adam was put in the garden. If you're talking about the biblical account of Genesis, to care for, to steward creation. And women were meant to help men reach their higher self, like help them, feed them, nurture them, show them this revelation of God's beauty throughout creation. And so I love this symbiotic relationship, this harmony that we're seeing, and that we're realizing, like, when we can get this right, when we can be one, I say in Hebrew, that's echad, that is like connected in unity, that we're really going to see this explosion of change, not just in relationships, but I think the earth is going to shift as well. I think we're going to see a big shift in the earth because, the earth is being sabotaged. And this is, I believe, a picture of what's happening and what's been happening in relationships between men and women for a long time. It's like we were talking earlier about the whole birth control thing. Well, we can just give her a pill and we don't have to worry about getting pregnant, instead of tracking her cycles, instead of knowing the rhythms of the earth, right? A good farmer knows the rhythms of the earth. They know when to plant. They know when to sow. They know, unlike our modern industrialized farming, to keep planting and planting and planting and pouring chemicals and, trying to just get the earth to produce without taking the time to really pour back into the earth and nurture it. And we've really raped and pillaged the earth. We've used the earth as a commodity. What can she give me? what can I do with this? And I think that is very telling of the relationship between men and women in its fallen form, we'll say. We're trying to get back to sustainable,
Yeah.
nourishing gardening.
It's another, like, macrocosm, microcosm type of thing, what's kind of happening worldwide is also happening in relationships, in homes, the good and the bad. Something that was really refreshing. I tend to recommend reading Wendell Berry to a lot of people, reading some of his poetry and his nonfiction about being a farmer and a gardener that actually tends the earth and caring for it and regenerate. He does a really beautiful job, and then like comparing it even to his own like relationships and some of his, even like his fictional novels, like he's weaving in this beautiful poetry of Mother Earth. And we can learn a lot from his wisdom to treat the earth a little better.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's all connected. And I think that's why this sounds so cliche, but when they say like you have to start in your home in order to make progress outside is so true. And, when life is so chaotic and there has to be two people working outside of the home, and it's nothing, it makes sense. It's chaotic. Nobody's really supporting each other. Then it all flows outward too. I mean, we're all connected to the earth, the universe, everything is one. And, as above, so below it's true. I know people connect that to, I can't remember the evil guy who uses it a lot, but it's true. We're
On
all
earth as
connected.
it is in heaven. That's what Jesus said. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it means the same thing. And if we can maybe find that balance again, like we were talking about, where, I don't think this could happen overnight. This is going to be a slow progress of people waking up and figuring it how it works for them, because I'm guilty of living with one foot in and one foot out of the matrix. I work part time, I stay home part time. I have my kids in a few sports. There's seasons that get really busy, and I'm not trying to demonize sports by any means. I think that there's good that can come out of it. Um, but it's really hard whenever you have all of the chaos everywhere and um, no real support on either side. The men are exhausted because they're out there working these jobs that are, whether they're physically, it's a physical bear to load, or load to bear, or a mental load to bear. And then they come home and the wife is exhausted because she's not only doing the wifely duties, but also running the kids. And maybe she's working, and it's like nobody's really living in their role. Whereas I think if the woman, just my opinion, doesn't make it right, but if the woman could stay home more, the men could support them in the phases that they need support, then they can be their soft place to land when they have a really hard day of doing their job of supporting. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
No, that's so good. And I mean, really, this is where we get into toxic feminism. We have the patriarchy, which we've talked about so many times, even deconstructing that in religion, because I grew up in the religious understanding that God was a man, Jesus was a man, and there was no women, period. All the angels were men too. And so I grew up wondering, well, what does that make me? Does that make me an afterthought? And you read Genesis and you said, let us, the word Elohiym is plural, right? It's two. Let us make man, which doesn't mean a man, it means mankind, humans in our image. And when I started a few years ago really understanding the Paleo Hebrew, and then I saw some work from Noel Hadley and Zen Garcia talking about, oh yeah, I mean, the Holy Spirit is feminine. This is how the Father made life, is through his wife. And even if you want to get into the Holy Spirit in Hebrew, that is the set apart Ruach. So the Ruach is just the name for our breath. It's just our inhale, our exhale, right? It's this sentient being, breath. And breath and light in ancient Chinese medicine is the union that came together to create all life. That sounds like a father and a mother to me. I don't know about you. But, it takes a man and a woman to make a baby, sperm and an egg, however you want to do it. Even if you want to do it in a lab, that's still what it takes. But this is bioenergetically how all life is created. And so we understand that Elohiym is our father and our mother. Then we understand that we have, oh my goodness, it's this partnership. It is this role. And I heard a really good talk at a women's conference a few years ago about this woman sharing about how her aunt was like really into feminism in the 70s. She was a college professor all the way through till she died in the early 2000s. And she just hated men. She was like, they have tramped on women. They've ruined our society. They've treated us like commodities. And she wasn't wrong in that essence. But then the response, or the thing that's supposed to heal it, is by beating men down, is by saying they can't do it. We can do it better. Now we're going to take on your role, and we're going to forget our role because you're not doing your role well. I mean, how many of us have ever, like, let's say, been in the kitchen and your mom comes in and bumps you out and says, I got it, I'm taking over. I mean, how does that make you feel, right? How does that make our men feel? But anyway, but in the end, she had this revelation, and this was a Christian woman at this Christian women's conference. Like, it's not women's turn, it's our time. It's our time to walk in who we were really made to be. It's our time to be the gardens for our families, for our husbands. It's our time to bear good fruit. Women are great at making a beautiful space. Like, men don't care. My husband all the time, he's like, I don't care if the house is a wreck, and again, certain personality types, he doesn't care about like the aesthetics or something, or feng shui. Like, we've got a bunch of family coming from my son's graduation next week, and we're like kind of sprucing up these man camp buildings. And the one, I'm just like, I'd really love to put some backdrop here. And he just kind of rolls his eyes, but I'm like, hey, this is my role. I'm here to make it beautiful. You're here to make it functional. And when we can work together in that, I mean, we can see incredible change. Anyway, go ahead.
No, this should just be really empowering to women, and not like, I think from sometimes a super religious background, fundamentals, they fear this type of language. And then there's the other side that's like maybe super feminine, and they're like, no, yeah, we should beat them down. But this should be the middle ground of a beautiful, slow, soft, feminine power where you can step into that role and, softly, and not, just breathe a little bit and understand, like, I am a part of this life force that creates and sustains all of it. You do it physically. How can you deny that it's not there spiritually? You cannot have one without the other. You cannot have life without men and women, masculinity and femininity. Like, you just can't. We just have to find the balance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I was thinking of that documentary, The Biggest Little Farm. I think anybody that's tried to like grow their own food, watch that documentary. But they
Yeah.
get this plot of land, and it's dry and it's barren and it's just wild, and there's weeds everywhere, and so they wanted to do it right. And so of course, they hired a guru, but they pulled all the weeds out, they burned them, they created all this fertilizer. I mean, they turned that place into an oasis. All the plants and all the animals were working together in this symbiotic harmony, but it took a lot of time. It took trial and error, and like, oh, they're having this fox problem. All their chickens were getting eaten. How did they can't just kill the foxes. Like, how did they create an environment where the foxes are sustained and the chickens are left alone? And but just what they produce from that is incredible. And I think there is a place to really uproot the weeds in our own life, and we can hopefully do that. But there's space for our men to be able to speak into us and share the things that are kind of thorny, rocky ground. And I always say, like, this whole refiner's fire is these things being burned away as we get closer, to our original intent, original design, further up and further in. These things are going to get burned away, and we want them burned away because we can't grow and bear good fruit if we're having a lot of weeds in our garden. And so we have to let go of things like resentment, bitterness, unforgiveness. We have to let go sometimes of, well, I want it this way. And be soft, like you said, Jesse. We want to be that soft landing place, but we also don't want to be run over. We don't want to be gaslit. We don't want to be told that these things aren't important, because we have this role to play that men can't play. I mean, we have our place in this rebuilding of the desolate places. And so, yeah, it really is about finding that balance, but also looking within ourselves and being willing to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, none of this is easy. It all takes time, effort, intentionality. Um, we have to we have to actually tend to our spiritual and material gardens, and we both, you know, the men and the women have to do, the work and the part of it. But I think about like here in San Angelo, we have so many sticker burrs, right? Everywhere. Everybody complains about the sticker burrs, and there's multiple varieties that grow, and they each have their time, right? When they shine. But you will find that when you have like the native grasses growing and you can tend those, it chokes out the weeds. It chokes out those sticker burrs. They're less likely to grow. There may be a few here and there, and it's the work can get easier, I guess is one point. And then also just, like if we can nurture that good fruit and work on those gifts that we know can make the whole universe a better place. You slowly just we literally weed out without having to do a whole lot of pulling. They naturally will die off.
Wow, that's really good. I mean, I think so many times we focus on the problem and not the solution. And we look for, I mean, as humans, we're critical. We look for the things that we don't like in someone or something rather than what's already there that's great and nurturing that. So I love that. That's a really good point. Um, yeah, I was gonna pull up something on data centers, but I don't want to lose our screen again. So um we're seeing this exponentially. I feel like things are kind of coming to a head, and I'd love to hear your lady's opinion on this, but it almost feels like we've advanced so far. Again, our farming practices have totally been subsidized by the government. It's just raping the earth, getting as max benefit as you can out of it, using chemicals, using toxins, so we can get what we want, produce the fruit. And now it's coming to a point where there's all these data centers popping up. And, of course, in Texas, we've had for a long time the oil rigging. And I'm not trying to knock on people because I know that's a big industry here in Texas is, pulling that out of the earth. But if you look at it, it ruins the landscape around it. It pulls out all of the good. Interestingly enough, there was a water buggy designed by a very intelligent man. I don't know how long ago, like in the 20s or 30s, and the government came and stole his plans for it, and he ended up dead a few weeks later. But one of my nephews was telling me he did this research on the water buggy. It's like a car completely run by water. But anyway, aside the point, we've really, and earth is groaning. There's this scripture I pulled up because I wanted to read it, but in Romans 8:22 and 23, it says, "For we know that the whole creation groans together and suffers birth pains until now." And not only creation, but even ourselves. So again, we're connected to creation. We ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Ruach, the breath, groan inwardly as we eagerly await for the adoption, the redemption of our body. So the redemption of our bodies, the redemption of the earth, interconnected. I love that. And we're seeing that, even with these data centers that are coming up, it is causing these toxic lakes. I was going to pull up a clip of, there's this lake in, I think it's the Lubbock area maybe, but it's been growing over the years because of this runoff of toxic water, and it's just killing it's killing the mesquite trees, ladies. It's bad if it's killing the mesquite trees, because those things I feel like would survive the apocalypse. We've got a ton of mesquite out here. How much more can she take, right? How much more can she take before? And in here again, how many thousands of years ago the Bible prophesied like that we and creation are groaning, waiting for this redemption, waiting for this healing of the land and ourselves.
Yes, and I think like one of the things that our society, big business, big companies, certain parts of religion kind of tell you that you have to wait for somebody outside of you to save. Like, doesn't matter, they're coming back, they're going to come save us. And
Yeah,
in
do what you
my
want. I'm going to heaven because I said yes to
Exactly,
Jesus. Yep.
exactly. Or, a certain administration is gonna save it because they believe one way, and it's up to us as individuals, but then grows out to the whole to, save it. And I'm not saying that that is not also, outside of us, but it is also within us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would probably consider myself, which I didn't even know this term until we had read, Richard Rohr, I consider myself like a panentheist, where it's like God is within us, but also exceeds everything. It's both. It's not. I'm not saying
Yes.
I'm God. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying without that ruach, without that breath, with the minute the breath is taken, everything just dies. And so, anyways, going off on a tangent again, but just saying that it's up to us as well. We can reach outside of us for the Holy Spirit to help guide us and all of that, but it's going to be up to us to make the changes. And um I think it's going to get worse before it gets better with those data centers and all that. I think there's too many people knock chat GPT all the time, and I'm not saying that there's not something to it, but it's so much bigger than chat GPT. it's
Mhm.
it's used in medical fields, dental offices. They use it as data backup, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be probably rough, but I do stay optimistic and think that it will get better on the other side.
Mm, that's good. Well, and if you consider Genesis 1 a recreation event, which I do, there was an age before where everything got completely destroyed. And then the energy, the force of all life, the father and mother are like, okay, let's, have you ever gone into like a messy room with your husband or like, if you're renovating something with them, you're like, okay, let's do this together. This is a mess, but we're going to make something beautiful out of it. And I think that's what God, father and mother did in the beginning, that there was a destruction, that there was chaos and disorder. And they're like, okay, let's rearrange this. Let's make something beautiful. And they did. And that's the age we live in now, the age of man or humanity. So yeah, that is a really interesting point. And maybe that's what's going to happen, that it's just going to get to the point where it's just destroyed and then we're going to rebuild from there. But, it's all good. I mean, my spirit's going to keep living on and on wherever it goes. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. You have anything on that, Emily Jane?
Oh, I mean, I guess I was just thinking kind of back to like a pendulum swinging. I mean, I just see this like, if we're electricity and magnetism, right? We're just like swinging so far into this electric, field. Like, I mean, I just passed by, a huge solar farm on my drive yesterday. And it's like, there's nothing inherently wrong with harnessing the power of the sun, right? We know the sun is powerful and is a healing force, and we wouldn't have life without it. Um, but my heart was just crushed by this destruction of Mother Earth as I see it, like the divine feminine right there was just completely wiped out. All these trees bulldozed over to create these panels. And I just thought, wow, like this could just be done in a much better way, in a more balanced way, in a more holistic way. We didn't have to rape the earth in order to harness the power of the sun. Uh,
Mhm.
and I just see this like pendulum swinging, and I don't, you start feeling defeated. I know, like Jesse just said, no one from the outside is going to save us. I know that power is within us coming together and working together for the good. Um, but you feel so disheartened, just kind of, I don't, it was just such a sad feeling when I passed by.
Yeah, that's so good. And I just want to speak into what you're saying, because again, I think coming out of that religious box, and coming into more of like the flow of truth that's being revealed to all of us. You hear things like that within us and about being one, and you can get triggered, but it's all right there in the Bible. Like Jesus says this stuff over and over again. He actually did not want to be made a king. He was like, please, they kept tried to make him king several times, and he just like went and hid somewhere. And he kept saying, I'm not doing anything you guys aren't going to do, and greater if you can get a hold of this, that it's Christ in me, the anointing, right? The oil of the heavenly realm. If you want to think about essential oils, they're like the lifeblood of the plant. I mean, they're powerful. That in us, Christ in us, is the hope of glory. And it's going to come from us being one. That was actually the last thing Jesus prayed before he died, was let them be one. Let them, I and them, you and me, let them be one. And, when you're one with your spouse, I mean, we've all experienced this from one degree to another, right? Like when maybe you're first in love, or right after you get married, or whatever, when you have those moments of intimacy, when you're one, it's like, it's the most powerful feeling. When my family and I, you guys know this too, like when you're playing a game together, laughing, when you're enjoying life, doing a project together, it's powerful. Like you feel this radiating force. Imagine if more of us got a hold of this, because again, it's not like, oh, the government's going to save us, or, well, Jesus is just going to come, love talking to some of my baby boomer relatives. I love them, but it's just like, they just think hunker down and wait for the rapture. And well, the world's all going to hell in a handbasket. Like, no, what if it's actually our job while we're here to help redeem the earth, to make things better? And that shifts the paradigm to like being a victim to a victor. Like we're here not to conquer, not to create dominion. I mean, the opposite of unity is dominion. And that's kind of what we have now in our current systems. But unity invites, it doesn't dominate. And again, when we're walking in our feminine divine as a representation of Mother Earth, then we're inviting a beautiful garden invites you in, and it's a place that you want to spend your time. So that's really cool.
There was real quick. There was a podcast that I listened to years ago, and there was a Harvard professor of Hebrew. It might have actually been how I first learned of Wendell Berry, and she spent 15 minutes going through the translation of Genesis and how the word dominion, was mistranslated. It was not to dominate and, take everything, and just traditional religious, priests, pastors, texts, like they took that and they thought it meant literal dominion. And then she's like, no, if you go back to the Hebrew, it's really not that word. And just how different we can come to everything if it's not from a place of thinking we dominate.
That's so good. Now I'm going to do a word study on that. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I think it was more like, had the connotation of what I remember from the paleo of like stewardship, care for. And that goes back to that video we watched earlier. Like that man was talking about, like, as men, care for your wife's cycle. She is innately connected to Mother Earth. Like, figure out her cycles. Know when, you're supposed to come together and when you're not, depending on what you want. And yeah, that's so, so good. So Jesse, I know anytime you have to jump off, you just let me know. I know you've got stuff you have to do today, but
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, so like I said, feel free to jump in. I'm going to read a couple more scriptures here. There was a really good book I read years ago by Skip Moen, and he was a Hebrew scholar, and it was called Guardian Angel. And it was about this symbiotic relationship between man and woman, and how, like, we read the Genesis 1 account, as people look at that and they're like, well, it was man, and then he made woman out of his rib. And it kind of, again, can be made to seem like it's an afterthought. But he really breaks down the original Hebrew language and how it was basically the spirituality, the consciousness of man was brought forth in flesh and blood, face to face, so that this side of him that he needed, this two become one become two, whatever, could be right in front of him as this helpmeet, helping him when he's on the right track, and then meeting him when he's not. And that is our role. And but Paul talks a lot about husbands and wives and their relationship. And I want to read a little bit about that too. Because again, we're not just here saying, oh, it's all about this, men have gotten it wrong. They've raped the earth. They've done all these horrible things to women. Like, we have our role as well. And, but I want to just focus on this, because in Ephesians 5:25, Paul says, husbands, love your wives as Messiah also loved his community and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, having cleansed her by immersion in the word. And so, like, in traditional religiosity, we'd read that and be like, okay, so husbands are supposed to, like, be willing to die for their wives, and they're supposed to just read the Bible over her. And it's like, no, let's take this a little bit deeper, okay? So he loved her enough to give up his life for her, right? To work hard for her, to toil, to till the ground, to nourish, to feed, to protect. Like, we think giving up our lives is like, okay, we're in a battle and like I'll stand in front of you and take a bullet. No, giving up your lives is a daily thing. And we as moms know this, right? Like, you can't even go to the bathroom without an interruption. So that is, to me, is really like the ultimate martyrdom. Is not just like in a moment I'm giving up my life. Martyrdom is like day by day giving up, what we want, our needs, for the good of the whole. I'm not saying like don't ever take care of yourself. Self-care is really important. And again, when we have that relationship, our men are helping us with that self-care. But it's doing what's for the greater good. Yeah, some days I just want to like lay in bed and watch Instagrams on my phone, but I need to make my family nutritious meals. I have to, I've got to homeschool my kids. Like, would that be for the greater good? Not really. There's times for that. But so giving up their lives is a call for all of us. But again, especially for our men, as they're caring for the earth, it takes time. It's not just a quick fix. It's not just throw some seeds out there and hope something grows, especially here. I've really had to try to cultivate the soil here. It takes time. And then making her holy, having cleansed her by the immersion in the word. So, water is very powerful. We need water to grow our plants, obviously, and we're always needing more rain and water out here in West Texas. But if we think of water as a sentient being, as a feminine sentient being, because water, mem, is feminine in Hebrew, allowing her to have that space for her own inner cleansing. How many times do we just need to go get a bath, right? I just need a bath. I just need a good shower. I need, water is very supernatural when we think about it. And that's why before they could go into the tabernacle and like the ancient Israel, hierarchy of worship, they had to go through the water. They had to be cleansed in the water. Jesus and John were baptizing people in the Jordan, right? Cleansing them in the water because it's a reset. It's a spiritual reset. I'll say so many times when I get a shower after a couple of days, I'm like, oh, I feel like a new woman, right? So the water is representing this cleansing, this refreshing that we need, that they can offer to us. And then the word. What words are we speaking over each other, over our plants, over our gardens, but specifically over the garden of our own home and our family? As our husband speaking words of life to us. Like, I love that clip we saw because he was saying like, tell her how beautiful she is when she's in her ovulation phase. Enjoy the glow, pouring into with words of life over those gardens as well. And so I just see this as another analogy for this design in Ephesians 5. It's really cool.
Well, and you said like water and mem. There's also like the Mary, MAR, right, was actually like ocean, like water.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you have the mother of Jesus is named Mary. I mean, and you just start to see like water is life. Water is the mother, can cleanse us, can heal us, nurture us. And then, I mean, talk about, where like science is catching up with spiritual truths, words, frequencies, impact the water, impact our bodies because we're made of water. I mean, it's right there. Like, there's so much power in our words and there's so much power in water.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to speak on that. Like, the word is more than just the Bible. It is because that's usually where people's mind goes, is the word. Well, it's the energy. It is the energy of all. And again, I am so guilty of not being very good at this. I don't live this out daily, although I am attempting to. But that's also where that support comes in.
Working toward.
Yeah.
Awareness is the first step, ladies. We're being
Yeah,
aware.
Exactly. I mean, I literally just had a really intense moment with my kid because like I'm going through a really demanding time in my life right now where like I'm supported in so many ways. I'm not saying that the support is not there by any means, but a section of the support is taken away temporarily where I have to step into two roles. And it's super stressful to my feminine part that I have to step into a different side of things temporarily. And I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at it positively because I think I needed this too. I did need to see the strength that I am capable of.
Yes.
I'm just not carrying it out very, very well. I mean, I am, but there's some stressful times I'm not being very feminine about.
That
Uh,
other part of the yin and the yang is just like taking over. And it's needed. I mean, it's a flow. We've all been in seasons like that. There was a season when I was pregnant with my second baby and my husband lost his job. I went to work full time and I was pregnant and working full time hygiene. And my husband stayed home with our only child at the time. And it worked and it's what we needed to do. But after so many months of that, my husband was like, I just don't feel like this is, I mean, I've loved this time with our son, but I really feel like I need to go back and work. And I was like, good, because I really feel like I need to come home. Like that was a great experiment. But there's grace for those seasons and we flow in and out of that. But yeah, it's we're learning to just walk in it more. And like you said, even just having a positive outlook, like handling this with grace, speaking words of life over it. I mean, that's something we can do. And it brings more balance to the situation too.
which is so important to have good community, which I have found in so many different areas. Like my family, our hike club have provided my family nourishing meals for this week that's probably about to be really crazy. And I don't expect it out of anybody or anything like that, but it's that support is the grace that I have needed 100%. And, now I just need to figure out how to integrate that into stressful situations like, because I'm homeschooling. Now, not 100%. I've got that outside help too, but we have homework to catch up on. And I'm
Yeah.
just finding myself in those moments really stressed out. And anyway, but the support to me what I connect grace to is that the community, the support, that is the grace that helps us get through really hard times.
Something that reminds me of, Jesse, is how I think part of where we've gotten with this imbalance on masculine and feminine energy, and the man's role and the uh, woman's role, is that we've also forgotten that so much of the support system is by the other plants that are growing in the garden. Our feminine friend, like our mom friends,
Yes.
are the other, the other women that are in our lives. Like there's a support structure there, and there's certain things that over the years, I mean, I've been married now for 17 years, and I don't know exactly when a shift happened, but mentally, it was like I was looking to my husband for all the support. And I started shifting and realizing, well, he's got his role, and I look to him for certain levels of support. But once I started just saying, but I have this friend that really supports me in this way, and I have that friend, and I'm going to look here. And it became a more holistic type view. And I think my marriage got better when I stopped thinking that he had to fulfill like every support role. And it might have been times like, with the birth of our kids and things like that, when you start realizing that like you need this whole community kind of around you, and that we are here to support you when you're going through, a challenging time like this. And there's just with the garden analogy, I keep thinking like, you plant basil and tomatoes by each other because they not only taste good together, but they support each other. But there's certain other plants that you don't want anywhere near your tomatoes because they just don't jive.
Yeah.
And so, you just don't look to those two plants to support each other. They're not meant to in that space, but other ones are. Anyway, I just kind of thought about like tying in what you just said and where you are right now. There, we can all support each other in
Yes, and
times.
even the weeds have their
Yeah,
role. I mean, they take
Yeah,
too, for
they do.
sure, They can take water, but then sometimes they provide shade from the sun
yeah.
and,
Holding the
so
soil,
yeah, you can
holding down the
almost
fort, right?
yeah. Yeah, and you can almost relate it to just the shadow of what somebody may be going through a hard time actually makes you grow better. You do eventually see the light that's needed. So I think it's, again, that analogy tying into as within, so without, as above, so below. It is all one. And if we can just figure out how to harness that within us, then within our homes, and then within our gardens, and then within the world, it all, and then these frequencies match. My
Yes.
energetic frequency will match your energetic frequency. And yes, there's some hiccups and ups and downs and all that, but it's just a slow growth.
Yeah, we're resonating. When we're resonating, we're in coherence, we're elevating, we're going up. It amplifies that sound, if you want to say that. And yeah, that's beautiful. Jesse, feel free to stay as long as you want. Jump off whenever you need to too. Because I just love your insight, but I know you've got to get stuff done today. I was just thinking about what you said about the community and the women being around each other. And I actually got to go to a birth Saturday morning, the baby was born. And it was a home birth, which is my favorite. And I got to be there with her the whole time, holding her body in certain areas, coaching her, talking her through the breath, like, you can do this, as the baby's head's crowning, like, you got this, mama, you can do this, dig deep, go within. And it's funny because her husband was just there, and he was super helpful, super sweet, helping through the contractions. But at that moment when the baby's being born and she's just releasing these guttural, deep sounds from within to get this baby out, I just see him kind of just standing there, right? And it was an incredible supernatural birth. Baby was born in call, so he was born in his sack. And when he hit the ground, the water burst, and I just get chills talking about it. But I was texting some of my mentors who've been midwives or attended births as well, and I said, "What a privilege! What a messy, beautiful, exhausting privilege it is to get to be with a woman in her moment of giving birth." Because if we want to think of the earth analogy, right, this is when the earth is opening up to release life, and it is a push and it is hard. And so afterwards, we're kind of like regrouping, and her husband's like, "That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Women are beasts." And I'm like, I know, but see, for us, it's like that's what we resonate with. We get in there and we're like, yes, this is it. This is our war story, this is our battlefront. And for men, it's just like, oh, I don't even know. I don't even know about that. But again, they can be a support in a different way. And my husband's been there when I've given birth and been awesome, but it's not their natural inclination, right? Like, they're great at planting the seeds, they watering, feeding us, giving us our snacks in the middle of the night. But man, when that seed comes out of the earth, that's a little intimidating. But anyway, I just love that picture. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. But I also want to kind of to transition that to a video. I think Jesse, you had sent this, I don't know, months ago, but just about, and I don't know if I want to go there and not step on too many toes, but like, we get so hung up on, it's all about Jesus, it's all about Jesus, it's all about Jesus, right? And that's great. It's great that religion has helped people to look inside themselves as a mirror and say, what is inside of me that needs to change? Am I caring for the earth? Am I stewarding creation well? Am I loving the people around me? Am I being, caring for the orphans and widows? But when we use religion as a place to divide and make it these in and out clubs, we've lost the whole point of oneness, of Echad. And again, Jesus wasn't all about being the king. I love how Richard Rohr says that he was the body of a man, but the soul of a woman. He perfectly embodied the father and the mother. And that's not blasphemous to say. I'm not saying like, oh, how dare you say Jesus is anything but a man. I'm saying he is the embodiment of how creation was meant to live. He was the embodiment of what mankind, to be human, was supposed to be. And in the video, this woman was saying, you know who else bleeds every month from the time she's 12? Women. You know who else opens up her body? Blood and water gushes out when she gives birth to new life. Women. You know who else sacrifices herself? I mean, if you've had a natural childbirth, you know, you feel like you're going to die. And this mama last night, I told her she would get to that point. But when you get to that point, it is just like, I don't think I can do this. My body feels like it's about to split open. I think I'm going to die. And then that new life comes, and it's just like a whole new paradigm opens up. Heaven invades earth. It's a supernatural experience. So, you know, community, womanhood, and then just this process that women go through is so divine, and it is so connected to our creator and creation. And if we only have eyes to see it, right?
Yes, that definitely opened my eyes when I saw that video. She just said, you know who, like you said, bled for me, who put her life on the line for me, my mother. And so you know, her point was just like questioning all the things and like the patriarchy and all that stuff. And so I think you're right. I think it's the representation of both. And to take our power away by saying, and I'm with you, I'm not super like um on the feminist side by any means. I think that's too extreme. But I do think to take the power of the life giving force that we have and represent is demeaning, and we need to look back, figure it out, you know, come back to the power creators that we are. So
In that Universal Christ book, that again, that's another one that I recommend to so many people to read, because Richard Rohr talks about when you start to see Jesus, you know, the physical man that lived 2,000 years ago, as a map, you start seeing like he walked the path that now he's like a guide and sort of showing us who we are. And he's not just showing men how to live, he's showing women too. I mean, he was embodying the yin yang symbol. Like
Coolness. Yeah.
he embodied it, he lived it, he had integrated all of that wisdom, and he was showing us how to walk, you know, walk the walk, talk the talk, you know, like really live all of this wisdom. And yeah, kind of like that divine feminine and masculine, like he was showing that.
Yeah. I love that. And if I can even just wrap it up with some of these thoughts, and then I want to give you ladies your final thoughts. But, you know, the toxic masculinity is something we've lived in for so long, where women were commodities, they were bought and sold. I mean, kings married women at 6 years old just so they could have dominion over land, right? And you know, you see the whole 1950s. It's like the man would come home, he'd kick his shoes off, he'd put his feet up. The woman was his slave. She just served him, and there was no reciprocity there. And then again, on the other side, when we're talking about toxic femininity, toxic, you know, feminism, it's gone so far, ladies. And we've seen it. It's really disturbing. But I was teaching my boys about the suffragettes a couple years ago. We were studying American history, and that's when it struck me. It was like, oh my gosh, the right to vote. The right to vote was the beginning. And that might be kind of shocking for some people to hear, but the point was, if a husband and wife are in unity and stewardship, he's a representation of this household. So he goes and deals with the government crap, you know, pardon my language, but it's just ridiculous. And the woman manages her household and, you know, this garden. She doesn't want to have to do that. So they're in unity. The vote is a family vote. And so what that began was a house divided, because a house divided can't stand. And so it gave women, I am all for single women, you know, widowed women having the power to vote as their household. And we see that modeled in scripture. I think it's like in Leviticus or Deuteronomy, they were divvying up land in the promised land. And there was a family that only had daughters. They had no sons. I think it was like Tirzah, Noah, and some other woman's name. But they came to Moses and they said, hey, what about us? And he inquired of the Lord, right? And he said, oh, yeah, you can absolutely have your own territory and land. But if you marry a man, his land becomes yours and that defaults back to the family. Right. So it was fair. And when I started to see like the suffragettes and how they were like throwing paint and destroying property and doing this in the wrong way, right? Like, give us what we want. It began this whole movement of separating the family. And the heart of this talk is not to say, women are so glorious and men are just like, no, we both have our divine counterparts. And when we're walking in it, when we're walking in harmony and unity, then that's when we see the world change. I really believe that like love starts in the family, mutual respect starts in the family. And if we can really foster that and build that into our children, generation upon generation, it's going to change the world. I think this, Christian mentality of like, oh, he's going to snap his fingers and the world's going to be made new. And I used to think that. I used to think like, oh, the bubble's going to burst and it's all going to be a reset. But that's not how life works. I mean, look at the seasons, look at the earth, look what she's trying to tell us is that it's sowing and reaping. I say the kingdom way is the way of the patient farmer. It's generation upon generation choosing better, choosing life, choosing to get back to, the ancient way, our original design. And I think when we really can foster that culture of honor, that's when we're going to see the change. And that's when we're going to see this relationship restored. And I believe the earth in response will see that in the earth as well. What do you ladies think? Final thoughts.
Oh, well, the feminist movement and even, starting with women, trying to earn the right to vote, I sort of see that. I don't necessarily think that the intent was malicious or wrong, right? I feel like it was probably, how do we survive in this, this world we're living in has gotten so warped, and it's like you're just climbing, kind of like clawing your nails at the cliff, like trying to hold on and trying to live in this broken, world. And it's like, there was just so much chaos and destruction, and there still is. And we just try to like find our way to make it and create some sort of harmony. And I kind of see it as like, when they say they can't ban Roundup because, too many farmers and fields and plants are dependent on it now. Like,
Right.
I kind of feel like it's that same thing. Like, I don't want Roundup on my, I don't want to have to use Roundup. I don't want anyone to have to use Roundup. But it was like, we've gotten ourselves into this mess where you got to kind of figure your way out of it. And I see a lot of these movements that happen in larger groups is just like a way to navigate this terrain that we know is not in balance. But it's like these attempts, and somewhere in there is the balance and the harmony and the truth, and we just have to keep seeking it.
That's great. Love that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also kind of think that just everything that happens at the timing that it's supposed to create something better. So even though there's mass chaos that goes on with whether it's like ultra feminine situations going on, you know, massive patriarchy that's just overwhelming, whether it's child trafficking abuse that's now coming out, like it's happening so that the aftermath can happen, so that the good can come out of it. I don't think that it's like part of me thinks like there's nothing we can do about it, but then there's something we can do about it. It's a little bit of both. Like,
It's good.
we can't stop something on the mass scale happening because we didn't know child trafficking was happening. We didn't know this was going on. We couldn't stop it. Now we have that option. Now we have that knowledge, and now we have that, where we can do our part to stop it. And there's people doing way bigger things than I ever thought about doing to stop it. They were meant to. That's their place. Where they're at in their life is designed to stop whatever is happening. So I think that um, I think it's all happening the way that it is supposed to. It is unfolding so that we're going around these phases. I think it's happened before. I don't think this is new. I just think things change. That's why it's a spiral, not a circle, because the
Yeah.
situations, the timeline, all of that is in a different point. The energy, the technology, it's all different. And so I think that we're playing our roles best we can to help make it better, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, so much. These were amazing, insightful points. I love when we get together. Last time we got together, I'm like, we just need to record when we hang out and talk. And of course, we have another friend, Annalisa, who will join us, and she also has wonderful insight. So this was a treat. I really appreciate you being on here today, and I hope this encouraged you wherever you're at in your journey and learning and understanding who we are and who we're made to be. And we have these truths that are unfolding, like you said, and it might not be right here and right now in our situation, but until we have it, let's practice it. How can we every day make better choices? How can we every day try to cultivate our garden and foster life? And the rest will come. It's a flow. So thank you, ladies. Love you both so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay on the ancient path, and there you'll find rest for your soul. Shalom.
Thank you, Carly.
Thank you so much. Bye.